Leadership is really important to me. It's a crazy world. Gosh, you want to bring kids into this world? My kids were born. I really want them to be good, leaders in the world. The world
What's
needs
that mean to you, a leader in the world?
where they know who they are, they know what they care about and what matters to them. When you speak from that place of knowing and care,
Yes.
grounded and centered,
Yeah.
you transmit something. If it has the power of a deep caring,
Hmm.
like draws like, and the world needs that.
I work with a lot of emerging leaders who I think are still trying to figure out where they stand, like who they are within the organization.
Mhm.
And I sense that that can be hard for them to know how to show up. How should I be? How should I be as a leader? What's my leadership model? Who do I emulate? And then how can I act like them or do the things that leaders do? And I think it can get you, it's a good intellectual exercise, but on the flip side, a lot of people then are saying, well, how do I really show up how I am authentically? What do you say about that?
Hmm. There were a lot of places in there I would go, oh, and but
Yeah.
I think it really begins with what are you practicing?
What do you mean by that?
We learn through practice. We learn through repetition. We learn
Mm,
through reoccurrence.
mm,
And the things we've practiced, such as doing what we think we should, live our lives by what other people tell us, and so
mm.
we can belong and feel safe, living from the outside in versus the inside out.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, authentic living is both. We do care about what other people
Mm,
say. It affects us. Well,
mm.
first of all, I'll just say something about practice.
Yeah.
We're always practicing something. You're practicing how you're listening or not.
Mhm,
You're or judging me or thinking or evaluating.
mhm,
And you are what you have practiced in your life.
mm,
You're practicing how you're breathing or sitting as well. And everything we do is in service of our deeper needs, of the life that animates us. And
mm,
some of our strategies work great, and some are pretty tragic.
mhm,
And so bringing to consciousness what we practice in our lives, and then knowing what matters to us, really articulating well what that is, and then organizing practices that support who we want to be now.
mhm,
That's the arc of
mm,
this work. And it really does begin with that question that none of us were asked in school growing up, or one in 35.
mhm.
And as I travel around the world and train people, really, it's very few people who are asked this question in school growing up. What do you care about? What really do you care about? What matters to you?
Mhm, mhm,
And or what would you love
mm,
to learn today? Instead, we pick from an appetizer table of all these things we can do it's from the outside in, and what's
mhm,
rewarded is how well we think,
mhm,
not what we feel. So what we practice is thinking over feeling,
mhm,
and what we don't use gets atrophied. That's
mhm.
just how it works. So
Those-
we can reinvigorate,
Yeah.
the parts of ourselves that are atrophied. And authenticity is when we fully show up.
What I'm hearing you talk about is how that's detaching ourselves from who we really are and what we care about and what matters to us. And so in my coaching partnership with clients,
Mhm.
we go into our coaching sessions and we untangle things and we look at things and we get curious and we look from different angles and we touch on, what do we value here? What is important here? And then between the sessions is when the practice happens. Like now, then you go practice. And we try to find things that can help move the needle toward where somebody who's it, wanting to increase their leadership impact or whatever we're working on, right? To where they get a little bit closer, move the needle a little bit closer to where they want to get to. What is the kind of practice that connects you deeper with your own authenticity? What's that look like?
Well, I have a very expansive definition of empathy.
Mm,
It's not just listening nicely to people, and
mhm,
I'm not belittling that. That's a wonderful
mm,
thing. It is how we listen to life, the life in us, the life
mm,
around us, the life
mm.
in you. Um, and I even expand it, to being, a bit of a quantum field where, expands beyond time. There's so many resources
Yeah.
available to us besides, the what we generally think is available. And so a lot of my practices, one brings the whole body into the practice. I
Yeah.
watch my grandchildren, and they're pre-verbal. First of all, there's so much, that we learn, and we're always communicating our history, whether we're
Mm,
aware of it or not. We have all these somatic strategies that happen. Some serve us, some don't.
mhm.
So one thing about working in partnerships or in groups is we can help each other see what we're doing. Um, so, for example, if I was to ask you
Mhm,
just in a sentence, tell me something, if you would,
mm.
that really matters to you. Something you would really stand up to, and even fight for. It just matters. What do you care about?
Mm,
Is that something, what comes to, and
mm,
imagine you're speaking to an audience,
mhm.
all right? Would you give that a try? No,
No
nothing.
preamble.
You're
Yeah.
you're there in front of the audience, and you'd say, "I'd like to tell you what I care about."
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to tell you what I care about. Let's just pull this up from deep inside. I care about connection. Yeah. I care about people being fully connected to each other, to life around them, and to themselves,
Mhm.
Yeah.
No. Um, can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
How did that feel? Did that feel like right on? What
Yeah,
went
it
on?
feels
Go
it
ahead.
feels right on. It feels I feel vulnerable
Hmm.
and open, right? Yeah. Yeah. Part of me
Um,
wants to say, like, how do we translate in that to something less touchy-feely?
no, my question is this, because you want to speak with power, I presume.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nothing is more powerful. If I sit here and tell you nothing matters to me more than taking care of my children
Mm-hmm.
and how much I love my grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I speak that, there's a power to it. I know
Yeah.
it. And it's not loud, it's not pushy, it's just plain powerful.
Mm.
So that's touchy-feely, but it's real.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. And what moves me moves others. When you
Yeah.
listen to the life in yourself and you move from that place, it touches the life in others. That's how it works. There are things we do to cut our power because a lot of us learn that if we shine too much, that people won't like us or that we will get in trouble. If we use
Mm.
our voice too much, that we won't belong, or not even some of us, a lot of us won't even feel safe.
Yeah.
That's in us.
Yeah. I had a question around that because you said like we do things to, did you say cut our power or diminish our power? I don't know. You said some
To dampen our power.
dampen our power. What are some of the things you see people doing to dampen their power?
You said something really powerful,
Yeah.
and your eyes did something like this after you spoke it, and you went like, "Yeah, there." And those are social gestures that are things we do, and they all, the body's a metaphor. It's
Mm.
always speaking. So, for example,
Mm.
you know, I learned as a child to stay quiet. Kind of, all my pictures are like me against the wall, like that. That part of me is still here. You can't lose your history.
Mm-hmm.
But when that part of me wants to go shy and go the other way, now I have come to a place where that reaction is now a resource.
Mm.
That
Mm.
tenderness that I just showed years ago, that would have been much harder. But now,
Mm.
instead of closing that off, you know, um,
Yeah.
kind of a thing, or just shrugging it off, which is
Yeah.
a really common, it's like, this is what really matters to me.
Right. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, those
Take
things
it
are
or leave it.
really powerful. And so
Yeah.
the somatic
Yeah.
part of this, getting people to see that in themselves, those are just, I call them core strategies to
Mm-hmm.
identify those places and turn those reactions into resources, because those reactions are
Mm-hmm.
protecting something actually quite precious. But they're old strategies and they can be updated. What they're protecting are those places that are actually incredibly powerful resources for connecting to others.
Where your authenticity is then coming from. Is that
And
what
it's
you
the
would say?
same practice for connecting to others, is the same practice as connecting to those places in ourselves that we have hidden away.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
all have them in all cultures around the world I work.
Mm-hmm.
Same, this, it's human. Just to make it really simple,
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, that person you work with that's a little bit tough to work with,
Oh
they just,
yeah. We
oh,
all we all got
you don't have to tell me about them. You don't even have to.
them.
This is, you don't even need a lot of words. Less is better sometimes. But
Yeah.
just imagine that person,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're coming to your door right now. Imagine that's happening.
Yeah.
Here comes the knock, and you know who it is.
Yeah.
What goes on in your body?
Yeah. Just
What do
some
you notice?
yeah, some tenseness, some like kind of feeling of like putting on a little bit of armor across the front of my chest. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're going to be talking to this person, and they're going to be feeling this. People feel before they think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what you communicate is a double message. Yeah, I'd really love to talk to you, but your body is saying, I am. Eeh. And so,
Mm-hmm.
how do you align that? Because authenticity is really being in alignment, showing up with confidence, meaning like, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of what that person does over there, you're going to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a practice. And it's not, you can't fake it. You have,
Right. Right.
what is it that organizes all of you really is what matters to you. And that might sound woo woo, but it ain't. The most
Right.
powerful leaders in this planet are those people who know what matters to them. And they're not so busy trying to outthink you. There's something that moves
Mm-hmm.
them, and that moves you. Confidence is knowing who you are, regardless of what people say. There's a truth in you that you can access. Confidence is knowing yourself from the inside out.
But here's the challenge is I've seen leaders say, I don't care what other people think, or I'm going to be myself. And it's a little bit of a excuse for some behaviors that can hurt others, or some words that are harsh, or some being blatantly a jerk, right?
So true. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let me tell you about a couple of the practices that
Yeah.
answer to that.
Yeah.
Basically, the practice is learning to pulse between me and we.
Hmm.
There's me, you and I are talking, we're in an interaction,
Mm-hmm.
business thing, and you say something triggering, I go to me for a moment, and then I can open up to we. We is this empathic knowing, listening. It's a listening field. We all have personal space. That's I could demonstrate that, in person, that it's to be able to include another in your attention. You can really read someone and
Mm-hmm.
feel their intention. And that is an important leadership skill. To be
Mm.
able to come back to a center when you're
Mm-hmm.
knocked off, and to know who you are, how you will get when you're knocked off center in your practice, to become familiar when you're
Yeah.
off center, and then what it feels like to be centered, open, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a pulse, and that skillful vulnerability. It's because you can't be vulnerable, which is a very powerful state, if you're afraid. It's an
Right.
opposite state of being.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
in order to be empathic,
yeah.
listening with your whole self, that's what empathic listening is for me. When to listen with your whole self, you have to integrate your whole self, and your whole self has to be relaxed, because the
Mm-hmm.
more relaxed you are, the more aware you can become, and the more open and inclusive. So the centering, coming back to yourself so you can open again. No one can stay open all the time. That's a very important skill. So that's one of the practices. Another one of the practices,
Yeah.
again, it's all the power comes from empathic connection. What is empathy? It is it's an important part of our species. How did we listen when we were in
Mm-hmm.
tribe to everybody and to the
Mm-hmm.
nature around us? We have faculties for that are deeply atrophied, and they're
Mm-hmm.
amazing the more we can reclaim them. And so the practices I share are ways to reclaim that ability for deep listening.
Yeah.
That's essential.
It's so important today because, what we know is that when we're all sitting in a room together, we have our limbic systems connect, right? And we can look at the neuroscience now that's really, really pinpointing that and highlighting that. And we react to each other and we forget sometimes we do. And I think that how much our work has gone digital, our work is through this screen like you and I are right now, probably means we need to practice that kind of connection even more. I get concerned about the generations that are coming up through the workplace where this screen, this box is their school life, their home life, their work life, with less of an opportunity to deepen those brain pathways around connection.
It's true.
Hmm.
And empathy, you can transmit it across this medium. Again, I lead groups from China to Russia to
Hmm.
Australia to US, all over. And I know if you can engage your imagination
Hmm. Hmm.
and engage your whole self, it can be a deeply connective experience. And it's the
Hmm.
same whether you're in person or not. Again, if you are listening, touching the life in yourself and connecting to the life in another, that's a felt experience, and it transcends the distance and
Yeah, yeah,
medium. And at least that's my experience.
yeah.
And
See, I love that wording, touching the life in yourself and the life in others.
mhm.
But it's definitely language that we shy away from in the workplace.
Everything we do,
Yeah.
there's a source for what we, like a need, a deep need
Mhm.
that we all share on the deepest level. And that's the source of our actions. You
Mhm.
could find all kinds of spiritual terms for that. But for me, you know, there's a power when we're connected to the ground we stand on,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively.
And purpose is a tremendous part of what people are seeking at work.
Mhm.
So what you're talking about, that really tapping into the ground that you stand on, what matters to you, what you care about, and having a way to bring that into your connection with others in order to bring forward your most authentic version of yourself at work, in teams, as a leader, as a person, is exceptionally powerful.
It
Mm.
is. If I felt like I was alone talking to you and I was telling you about my power and what's important, and it reminds me of my mother who'd say, like, don't do that. And she's like, not this big woman, but you could just see she's in it alone sometimes when she's talking to me, and there's like no power. But, and by just engaging your imagination for a moment, feet
Mm.
on the ground that, is a metaphor for meaning, what
Yeah.
matters to you, what's the ground you stand on, and learning to listen to that is the same faculty for listening to the ground of someone else and finding understanding,
Mhm. Mhm.
common ground. it's a metaphor, but it's real. And um, when you know the ground you stand on, and then you cultivate relationships, and this
Hmm.
is more practice, and I do it in my work on a emotional, physical, verbal, energetic, even practice that cross trains across those domains, so that you are working. The principles, they they're the same in all those domains. And when you
Because you're
can,
bringing it from Aikido, you're bringing it from nonviolent communication, you're bringing it from your life wisdom. Yeah,
there's a lot of practice in there.
yeah,
45 years of Aikido, which is a way of
yeah,
conflict, harmonizing conflict. Now, isn't that an interesting term?
yeah.
And you're doing it in a martial way, but it's really about a
Mm, mm,
connective touch. And yeah,
mm.
it's a very useful and powerful reference for me.
Yeah.
The basic principles are the same as nonviolent communication. And same thing with somatics, which is, as a coach, you
Hmm.
I draw from those whole systems.
So could we go back to that idea of getting knocked off center?
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's lovely. Wait a second. What? Did you see that? Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. It's too
Uh,
powerful to stop me, I guess. Huh? Joking. And by the
uh,
way, as a leader, when in this work, you can start to see these things, and you can
yeah,
help your people be more, be better speakers, and to notice their habits.
that's right. You can tune in and you're listening at a different level. You can start to listen at a more holistically. Yeah.
Ways to self-regulate.
Mm-hmm.
Learn what's too much for your own system, because when your system gets overloaded, you old habits kick in. And there's some really simple practices for managing overloads. A big piece of being more relaxed and aware.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good reminder. Because
Mhm.
when we're in the workplace, we're in systems that quickly overload us because of the time pressure and the performance pressure
Yeah.
goals, right? They can be very intense and we could feel like we're coming from a place of like low internal reserves.
Yeah, and then we start taking everything personally, and so how do there are ways to stop taking what others say quite so personally,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to just listen to really what matters.
Yeah. So going back to that idea of getting knocked off center, as a team coach, I'm often in the room with groups when things get a little heated. And sometimes when things get heated, it comes from, it transforms from that healthy idea-based conflict. Well, we should look at this idea, or this is our revenue goals, or I don't think you got that quite right, to, hey, don't you trust me? Hey, are, you keep doing this to me. That, things can escalate because now we're not talking about the problem we're trying to tease apart. It becomes about the person.
I'm familiar with this.
Have you seen that happen before?
Once or twice.
And our inclination, I mean, I learned as a kid to dig in because now I want to win. Now I'm protecting something and I'm protecting my idea, but I'm also protecting how other people see me. I'm protecting myself.
Yeah.
And I'm wanting to win, right? And I'll say at that point, I've lost center.
Yeah, there's definitely some disconnection, because a
Yeah.
part of you is not present. Part of you is back in your history, acting in ways that you have practiced most.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
when you get triggered, you move to your default mode, which is what you've
Mhm.
practiced most.
Yeah.
And so that, my question would be, well, how's that working for you?
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
some people go, yeah, it's working okay. And then, then you're with other people. How is that for you to work with that? And it'd be like,
Mm.
you know, so there's a lot of information available, and you are off center in that moment, and it's really hard to reorient, but it's really possible to come
Mm,
to the center. And again, those are things that I train people in.
yeah.
It's up to them to practice, because no matter
Mm-hmm.
what, you showed things to people and they get it and it's cool, and then they go home, it goes, put it on the shelf, and they
Yeah.
go back to what they practiced most, and that just becomes shelf help.
It's another training binder on the shelf. Yep.
Yeah.
We got
So,
stacks
so
of them.
what I teach
Yeah.
are personal practices, lifelong,
Mm,
for building relationships. And it could be in the workplace, it could be
mm,
home, same basics. It
mm,
could be for building community. And again, it's about being who you are. You can have different strategies with different people, but you are who you are. And really,
mm.
in that practice of becoming, uh, the name of my book, becoming what you need.
Yeah.
You know? And in that way, you're not always searching for everybody's needs and your own. It becomes embodied in you, and your whole self becomes your guidance system. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
as what you think, and oh,
Mm-hmm.
how should I do this, and oh, what do I need? It's getting
Mm-hmm.
your whole system to navigate, and there's so many more resources than our thinking processes.
So where do people start?
Hmm. Um, well, first thing is they want, ideally is there's something in them that wants to change. There's something that is not working the way they would like. And I mean, it could be the pain that they're feeling, honestly, or a deep desire for change, or you
Yeah.
know, that's that's good fertile ground.
Yeah.
You
It's like
know,
that answer to the how's it working for you? Oh, it's not entirely.
I like
There's
to do,
something not working.
yeah, and I'd
Yeah.
really like to be
Mm,
a better parent. Or I'd really like to, create more of a sense of community in the workplace versus, the constant uncomfortableness. That's a good place to start. But then, usually, what I like to do is when people are there and where I want to give them a visceral sense,
hmm.
experience a visceral sense of what connection, the kind of connection that we're in it together, what that feels like.
Hmm.
And when they can feel that, they have a way to orient what they're practicing and learning
Hmm.
with that feeling. So it's again and again and again a felt sense of
Mm-hmm.
unity
Mm.
from within. That might sound abstract, and again, as touchy-feely as it may sound, it
Yeah.
does. There is a. It's really easy to perturb people. First of all, I can do that very well, and at the moment they're perturbed, their their habits kick in.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
said to you, imagine that person at the door, and all of a sudden, this is clenching.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes a reinforcing loop.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once you learn that this part of you is giving you information,
Mm-hmm.
turn to it and actually listen, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the same way you would turn to another person and listen, really listen.
Yeah.
Then
Mm.
the nature of that conflict, whether internal or it shows itself, and conflict is there to show us something, and we can
Mm-hmm.
learn from it if we don't resist it, but actually are skillfully able to listen, in a way
Mm.
that's safe, in a way that's safe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's just a ton of information. And as a leader,
Mm.
you know, you it's intuit, to engage, or
Mm-hmm.
for example, again, without going into the moment you start to listen to the body,
Mm-hmm.
you are immediately touching your history. Say therapy and stuff that can go around and around and around and around, But the moment
Right.
you are start, really sinking into what is actually happening physically, you are there. And it's like a
Mm-hmm.
year of therapy in a moment. And so we do nice and slow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But these are things, you said you pointed to here and when that other
Yeah.
person was walking into the door. And that is um, a learned habit. That's
Yeah.
not part of the original package.
But it's also a signal I'm hearing you say. It's
It
also,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's basically saying, it's a part of you that says, "Uh-oh, protect your heart,"
Mhm.
or something to that effect.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And by actually listening to it, and again,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
creative listening, you know, with all your senses and your imagination engaged, not fantasy, imagination.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we understand everything. I wouldn't know who I'm talking to if I didn't engage my imagination.
That's right. That's right. So, you're reminding me of the whole, there's a lot out there on EI, right? Emotional intelligence, and how it starts with, I always love Daniel Goleman's work and Primal Leader. But it's starting with the self-awareness and then the self-management and then moving to other awareness and other management, meaning like influence, right? And those four quadrants of emotional intelligence, self and other management, awareness, is what I hear you touching in this, being really deeply self-aware, but in a little bit different way, moving it from your brain to into kind of all the signals that you're getting throughout your body in order to then bring forward what you want to bring forward as a human and leader and individual into working with others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the emotional intelligence charts and processes you're mentioning,
Mm-hmm.
I've explored those too, and they're in
Mm-hmm.
my work, but mostly by learning to really listening to the messages within us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
head, heart, belly, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it creates an inner map, an inner guidance system. So we don't have to go up to the grids and the processes, and it's like it becomes embodied, and that is a piece of um, leadership,
Yeah.
being it. You ever try to lead a horse? Come on, you try to talk to it. No, it doesn't work. You have to, by being it, the horse will generally will follow you or not. But there's so much communication going on. We're the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So I don't
Right.
ignore all the other stuff. It just
Mm-hmm.
the work I do complements a lot of different technologies. Even in the emotional intelligence world, there's a lot of
Yeah.
talk when you can just go, instead of what I'm feeling this, and I'm feeling that, you just going, I feel tight here. When you said that, I got a little tight.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different start.
Hmm. Hmm.
And to go tight, then go, what am I thinking and feeling? And it's
Hmm.
all it's versus I'm tight. And you go here, it's and you
Yeah.
inquire within, and it's kind of going, I'm not sure I'm safe with that person.
Right.
Of course, so there's a need for safety, a need for something. But you can go direct.
Mm-hmm.
And not
Mm-hmm.
only that, you can, once you get practiced at this internally working with yourself, you can see it in others.
Mm-hmm.
See how people shape themselves. I'm really excited to be here right now. No, I feel very relaxed. It's like, no, no, no. You can see it.
Yeah.
And reading, you can read a person, not to manipulate them, but to be, it's just a way of
Yeah.
more information.
As we wrap up here, I was just thinking about if everybody in a workplace had the ability to tap into what's true to them, and to understand where they're at in that moment and regain center. What a fulfilling, like what amazingly fulfilling and productive, but especially fulfilling workplaces we could have, that where people felt belonging. They felt they should be there because they were more deeply connected to themselves and then more deeply connected to others.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be my wish, you
that's
know.
what we want.